I turned my video off though.
What's that? Okay.
Yeah. Okay, I can see that you're recording now. Awesome. Thank you, Andy.
Okay.
Hmm.
Hi, Kristen. Kristen? Hi, Kristen. Don't have audio on her yet.
Andy, can you hear me?
I can. Hello.
Oh, good. Hi. Happy Friday.
Yes. Happy Friday.
It's beautiful too. Beautiful Friday.
Yep.
Are you guys doing anything fun this weekend?
I'm not sure yet. We're still kind of figuring out what our plans are going to be. Probably some yard work, I'm sure, is somewhere in there.
Yeah. Frank's out there now doing it.
Hi, beautiful.
Who's beautiful?
You are.
Oh, hi, Laura. You are right back at you, girl. Hello.
Hi.
She's got bouncing locks.
Flipping anyway.
I just said to Andy, happy beautiful Friday.
Oh, it's gorgeous out there.
It's totally gorgeous.
Could we have had this meeting yesterday, Andy?
Yeah, it would have been maybe, I'm not sure. It was pretty blustery around where I was, between the trees and the rain and everything else. I don't know. Dog was going kind of crazy. Probably a few too many distractions.
On a day like yesterday, we're all nervous about our sump pump of all things. Is it up to the job?
Sure.
It wasn't working not long ago, and we realized it was because it was full of ping pong balls from when the boys were growing up.
Oh no. Hi, Miss Evans. Well, look at that gorgeous backdrop. How'd you do that?
Oh, you just Google Kansas City skylines.
Hi, Dee. I haven't seen you in a while.
Hello.
Good to see you.
And I just saved it to my desktop and then uploaded it into my Zoom virtual backgrounds.
Clever.
That is awesome.
It is awesome.
Yeah. I got a bunch of different ones.
I need to actually get a Zoom account so I can do that stuff, because my house gets dirtier and dirtier every week I'm home with 2 kids, and so it's like I need to
I see we have the same color scheme in our house. My walls are the same color with the white trim.
The gold and white
Gold and white, yep.
goes with everything.
Yep. And the sun,
Look at mine.
the sun
Look behind
shining,
me.
the sun's not shining.
Yep. You're very gold too, Kristen.
I do. I love gold.
You and our president.
Is that Jerry talking about President Trump?
Yes.
What are you saying about him?
Comparing you to him.
Because you both like gold, right?
Yes.
Oh. Yeah. I hope That's
I know.
the similarity.
Barely
I'm not-
saved that one,
No,
Jerry.
Jerry,
just-
I was hoping to see your face today.
Oh, my camera's on. Oh, it's covered.
I cover mine when I'm in meeting, like those big webinars with hundreds of people. I cover mine too, because who knows who's like watching you. Yeah, I should probably go turn down my at least curtains because it's really bright.
Not sure if that helps or not.
Hey, Tom.
Hi, everyone.
Hello,
Hi.
Tom.
At least take the glare down a little bit for you guys.
So this is Bob. I just want to let you know that I'm listening, but I'm going to turn on mute because I'm in my car.
Okay.
Where are you going, Bob? I say after he turns on mute.
I'm trying to restore my computer. It's dying.
Ooh, not a good
no.
time for that.
I know.
Is Joanne coming on?
Well,
Or she-
Joanne has the phone number to call in, and I don't see that she has called in yet. So actually, she had recruited you, Kristen, if Bob wasn't able to chair, which if he's driving, he may not be able to do that.
Ooh,
Hold on, Joanne's calling.
Hi, everybody.
hi, Tom.
Hey.
No, I am. Have you called in yet?
You're stuck in the lobby. How many people are stuck in the lobby?
And under a different name or something. So I will. Oh, that's fine. Okay, I will admit you in here in just a second. Hold on 1 minute. I'm going to bring everybody, because I had all the non-commissioners waiting. So if I recognize the name, I was admitting them in, but I'll go ahead and admit everybody. So you should be in any minute.
Hello?
You know when you see something happening.
Hi.
Yes, there you are. Okay,
Okay, great. All right, I'm going to hang up.
thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye. Okay.
You don't want to be seen? Yes, I want to be seen.
All right. Well, welcome everyone to the Climate Protection Steering Committee. If you have your microphone on,
Joanne?
mute that.
Andy, this is Joanne Collins. Can you hear me?
I hear you just fine, Joanne.
Thank you.
Okay. So in a moment, I'm going to turn this over to Joanne to go through our agenda. Just basic ground rules is if to keep your microphone on mute unless you have something to say. And in terms of the community, the stakeholders, others that are visiting us on this call today, we are going to reserve some time at the end of the meeting for you to be able to speak to the committee at that point. So if you can just hold your comments until the end, that would be great. So we can kind of keep the meeting moving along. So with that, Joanne, are you ready to go?
Yes, I'm ready to go. Well, committee members, it's good to see all of you there. Can you hear me? And I particularly want to say hi to Dee because I haven't seen Dee in a few weeks. I've seen a couple of the others in the last few weeks. But we're living in a new and operating in a new area. So I appreciate Andy's support for making sure that the Climate Protection Steering Committee was able to hold its regular meeting. And I want, if each one of you could introduce yourselves, unmute yourself and introduce yourself. We'll start with Dee.
I am Dee Evans and President of Beacon Hill McPeters Community Council, representing the residents of Beacon Hill.
You're looking well. It's so good to see you.
Thanks.
Who's next? Kristen?
Hi, everybody. I'm Kristen Riot and Executive Director of Bridging the Gap.
Okay, thank you. Who's next?
I'm Tom Jacobs with
There
Mid-America
he is.
Regional Council.
Thank
Hi,
you.
Joanne. It's a
How's
pleasure to meet
David? How's David? Is he okay?
you. I think he's well. I heard his voice at our board meeting.
Okay, very good. Okay, I'm Joanne Collins, Chair of the committee, and we will go through our agenda. I'm not going to, you all have a copy of it. We're going to ask Andy if he will just take us through it. We do need to approve the minutes for the February meeting. Are there any corrections or additions to that, to those minutes?
Nope.
Hearing none, I will only add that there is a typo at the bottom. I think, Andy, if you will see that your name says any
Oh, okay.
rather than Andy. So please get that corrected.
Sure.
All those in favor say aye.
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 Any objections or any other discussion? And also that do not vote for it, you can say aye also. Okay, minutes are passed and adopted. Is there staff present, Andy?
Yes, there are. You want me to go through who
Yes.
they are?
Please have them introduce themselves and you can go right on with our agenda.
Okay, so I'll start off with Andy Sebastino. I'm the Chief Environmental Officer for Kansas City. Gary?
Jerry Schechter, Office of Environmental Quality, Sustainability Coordinator.
Excuse me, but it's good to see you, Jerry. I hear a lot from you. You know that. We all do. Thank you for the information.
You're
Keep
more than
us
welcome.
up to date. Thank you.
Laura?
Laura Ish, Office of Environmental Quality, Sustainability Manager.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Rachel?
Rachel Willis, Administrative Assistant with the Office of Environmental Quality.
Thank you.
And I think that's all of OEQ that's on the line.
And Joanne, it's Bob. I'm listening, but I'm in my car, so my video is off and I'm leaving my mic off as well.
Well, Bob, you knew you needed to say something because you know you have a call that you need to return to Sister Joanne, okay?
Right.
Thank you, sir. Okay, Andy, we're ready now, I think.
Okay. And just want to give a disclaimer as well that we are recording this so that Rachel can prepare the minutes for the committee. So just to make you aware that that is going on.
Thank you.
Okay, first off is the resolution 20005. And after many months of being held, that finally was, we did a presentation to a joint committee actually in May. It was, let's see, it was May 12th to the Finance and the TIO committee. And I think the presentation went pretty well. We had a huge number of comments that were submitted by the stakeholders, and we greatly appreciate that. There were many comments that were very supportive of not only the goals, but of the strategy moving forward for the planning process, for the climate protection and resilience, of course, all through an equity lens. So very excited. That happened on the 12th was the joint presentation, and then the full council approved it on the 14th. So for us, what that does, it kind of kickstarts our process in terms of internally how we're going to go forward. And I think it's opportune timing because there's so much going on at the regional level with the Climate Action KC folks. And then we just had the risk and vulnerability assessment. So I'm going to have Tom talk about that later on in the agenda. But for us, I'm going to turn this over to Laura Ish here in just a little bit to talk about what we're going to be doing in Kansas City to kind of move forward on the climate planning process.
Okay.
One of the things I did want to point out is during the deliberations in committee, the resolution was added to by Councilman Robinson. So I did send a copy of this to the committee. There's a new section 7 in the resolution, and she added that that climate equity will be a central focus of the Climate Protection and Resiliency Plan, and that the plan will ensure that all people have the opportunity to equally benefit from the climate solutions that we come up with. So we thought that was a great addition to it. We already had quite a bit of equity kind of written into the resolution in terms of the stakeholder involvement, but that was a nice little extra addition to put in there. So I don't want to take up too much time because we do have several presentations. I do want to turn it over to Laura. She's going to be kind of talking the committee through what our next steps are and where we go from here. So Laura, you want to take it from here?
Good afternoon, everybody. I don't see anybody actually like outside. It's like we all need to be sitting on our porches doing this right now. It's so gorgeous. But okay, so yeah, 05, as I like to call it, because I get too many zeros passed. And now our next steps are to create a timeline, or we've created a timeline of our next steps. I'm going to try to share that with you without causing issues here. We'll see. I share my screen. And then, all right, can everybody see my screen?
Yes, wonderful.
Okay, so after talking to several other cities and meeting with our internal staff on processes here, we're definitely trying to go out for a consultant for this process, just because this is a huge equity focused plan. It's also a very short timeline to get a lot of stakeholders involved in the education and outreach process, and it's not something that our office can do with the bandwidth that we have. So at this point, due to COVID and the budget issues and things like that, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to have to go out for an RFI, or a request for information, where we're going to send that information out to various groups that have put together these types of plans in the past, just to get an idea of costs so that we can draw up our ordinance to bring to council, and to ask for the money that we need to complete the plan and actually cover all of those bases that were listed in 05, and make sure that we're doing a transparent stakeholder process and equity driven plan. After we get the funding approval for that, we'll then have to council awards us funding for this. Then we will issue the RFP, because we are on such a short timeline. You know, this started in May and we only have until March to get this process finished. So we're going to start the RFP process at the same time we write the request for information. We're going to also start writing the request for proposals, because that can take 4 to 6 weeks with procurement to make that happen. So with the 4 to 6 weeks to get responses back for the request for information, and the 4 to 6 weeks to get the information back once we get the RFP actually issued, we're already looking at 12 weeks that we've lost of time just to get a consultant on board. So once we do that, then of course we've got our normal contracting processes to make sure that we're getting an accurate consultant, one that can actually do what we need. So we're going to have to have those proposals reviewed, which means we're going to receive them, and we're going to create a selection committee around the time that we start the RFP process. And that selection committee, we're hoping, is made up of really active stakeholders, community members that are interested in this process, council, and then city staff. So we're thinking around 5 people for that process, maybe 1 from each. We're going to review the proposals and then hopefully get a consultant that everybody's on board with. And then we've got, I mean, that process could take up to a couple of months. We're hoping we can get it done as fast as possible, but trying to make the timeline realistic. Then we start our planning and engagement piece, and that's going to involve creating an outreach and equity plan. And then we're going to, of course, have to get staff and committee workshops done. And when we talk about committee, that's going to be our large stakeholders that were involved in the last plan, and some of the new stakeholders that really want to be involved in this plan. And then once we get all of those folks on the same page, then we're going to go out for public workshops, and we're going to go out to the public, explain the process, what we're trying to do, how we plan on doing it with the help of the consultant. And those public workshops we'll have a series of questions, hopefully, and a series of processes that the public can be involved in to help them understand exactly what the climate protection plan is and what things have to be looked at to make sure that everybody's receiving the same benefit from it, and not being, that we're not creating any issues for any marginalized communities in the process. During this time, we're also hoping to get an updated greenhouse gas inventory out of this process. We may or may not, depending on timing on our internal processes. We're in the process of trying to put together a system that tracks the city's energy use. Internally, it's called Energy Cap, and that's supposed to be done somewhere in here. If that's done, we can, a good consultant should be able to turn around a greenhouse gas inventory for our city and then community-wide in a pretty short period of time. And if so, great, we'll have a new greenhouse gas inventory. If not, we're gonna have to do that separate from this process and off to the side, because we're gonna need one either way. Oh, okay, then we're gonna have to actually draft up the plan based on that information. We'll have a second workshop with staff and the really involved committees to make sure we've accurately incorporated to everyone's liking the public input that was in the plan. Then once we get that.
I think Nathan called you on the landline. You want me to call back? Yeah.
Sarah, I think we can hear you.
Oh, so sorry.
Oh, that's okay.
Gosh, that's terrible.
All right, and so then we'll get the draft plan out for public comment. It's going to be a really short turnaround. Again, we're looking, you know, I like to give at least 30 days for public comment. And at the same time, we're going to be getting internal feedback on some of the deliverables like the climate forecast and our GHG inventory and internal policy processes that are going to come out of that plan. And then end of March is when we're going to present this thing. And this timeline is, it's really, really short and it's really, really tight. I'm hoping we can do everything we need to do in this timeline, but all of this timeline working hinges on, one, getting the cost to council in a timely manner and having council approve the funding in a timely manner. Otherwise, we're going to run into the issue of we're going to have to look for grant funding or other ways to fund this process or other timelines. So this is crucial right here. So we're going to try to get moving as soon as possible on this process. And I guess so then our next steps after this are identifying those stakeholders, those major stakeholders that we're going to have involved in this so that we can make sure it's an equitable process. And I would love to know where the committee would see themselves in the process of identifying those stakeholders and what process you'd like to have in reviewing the RFP or anything that we send out to council.
Laura, you got a very aggressive timeline as you expressed, and you're 30 days in to it already.
Yeah.
Good luck.
Gonna do our best. We don't need to sleep, it's fine.
Any questions from the committee members? Okay.
Madam Chair, it's Kathy Bennett. I do have a quick question.
All right.
Are there any guidelines or targets that you are looking at in terms of number of stakeholder presentations or in terms of, what would I say, genre or sector that, you know, you want to make sure you hear from these key, 5, 10 sectors, whatever, anything like that, that's a target or a recommendation?
That is a very good question. The issue with that is if you look at actually resolution 05, which I think I have up down here, we have got to, this has got to be an equitable process, and we have to offer input to a list of stakeholders listed in section 5, which includes community members, faith groups, youth, labor unions, public health groups, businesses, academic institutions, homeowners associations, housing groups, environmental, economic, racial, gender, and family and disability justice, and indigenous, immigrant, and women's rights organization, and other such interested parties who will be integral to the effort. So it's a large group we have to reach out to. So looking at 05, I'm assuming we've got some members of the community that are with the Sierra Club on, I can see, and some other folks that have been really, really helpful in identifying those groups to reach out to. So, on a grand scale, I'm hoping they can also help identify contacts for those groups that would be interested in the process. And all we can do is reach out and then see what happens. So at minimum, we're going to reach out to the groups that were involved in the original climate protection plan. We definitely want to have the input and that institutional knowledge from the original folks, and then work towards getting all of those, at least notification out to all of those groups to see if they have the bandwidth to assist at this time. Because I know especially a lot of the public health groups, COVID has really strapped their resources. So we're going to do our best to be inclusive. And I think a lot of that is going to be also driven by the consultant and what they see is what they've learned with the whole COVID process too, on reaching out to folks.
So I appreciate that answer. And actually, I have the ordinance in front of me, but I stepped up to lift some weights. So I wasn't just studying for the whole meeting. So in any event, I would just, there you go. Mine, well, I took my video off so you guys wouldn't see me lifting weights. See how small
this is what I do when I'm in meetings too.
But in any event, I would just say, Laura, that if the chamber can help you with the business community, we've got a couple of different venues. But what we've been doing lately is just offering our Kansas City, Missouri committee, Dee serves on that, and probably some others of you do as well. So anyway, but we also could resurrect our old energy committee, which we have done recently for Mike Kelly and his climate action group. So anyway, just wanted to offer that. Thank you.
That would be wonderful. You were actually one of the first, the chamber was one of the first groups we were looking to reach out to for that very reason.
Whenever it's time, reach out and we'll make it happen. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for your aggressive responsiveness. Thank you.
So Kathy, this is Bob. First of all, we're impressed that you're pumping iron while we're doing this meeting. But beyond that, I have a question for Laura. As I recall, we were a little concerned that we might not have enough money to act all this out. And I understand there was some kind of an exchange with the counselor, or specifically with Catherine Shields, about some additional funding. And I guess I would like to know, and maybe others would as well, what do we, I know you're just putting the RFPs out and so on, but what do you expect well, first of all, what do we have to do this work, and what do you expect will be required for us to act this out?
Right now, good question, Bob. And right now, technically we have $25,000 that was set aside for the plan. However, we just crossed a new fiscal year in the city, and budgets are being rearranged right now just because of everything that's going on. In the 05 resolution meeting, Shields and Eric Bunch had both mentioned that if we want this to be a Kansas City plan, we need to find the funding to do it. If we're really in on this, we need to find the funding. And I thought that was a very beautiful thing. Councilwoman Robinson had actually also suggested environmental, EPA environmental justice grants to assist with the process. That's why we're doing, Bob, the RFI first, which is just a request for information. It's like a 3-paragraph thing we send out to all of the consulting firms and go, what do you think it would cost to do this without doing a proposal? Because we don't want to spend any time or money. You know what an RFI is. I didn't know if everyone did, but
right.
So I'm expecting it's gonna come back. If we didn't have a shortened timeline, I would expect it to come back around $100,000 to $125,000 to do the plan. With the shortened timeline, and everything going on from a COVID perspective, and not being able to do, authentic face-to-face public outreach, it might be higher costs. I can't say anything to that because I haven't heard anything along those lines yet, but it's definitely a possibility that those might come out a bit higher. If that were to happen, then I'm reaching out to Councilwoman Robinson is definitely high on my list of things to do as soon as we get this RFI out, just to make sure any extra funding we can get and any extra outreach and any extra boots on the ground to help with these meetings so we can actually get this in the face of more people is a positive. And we've also talked a lot with the planning department on piggybacking as best we can on some of the outreach that they're doing for the comprehensive plan. So we could have at least information available at some of their meetings on this one if possible. So we're going to do the best we can.
And can I add to this, Lara, is that's why this is an opportune time, is that we can piggyback with the activities going on with the comprehensive plan revision, but also I think the activities going on at the Climate Action KC, and I've reached out to the equity group there, Keisha, to see where we can tie in with that as well to kind of, help us along with our process as well. So looking to synergize wherever we're able to do that. And the other thing, and I think Laura mentioned a little bit about grants. The past couple of weeks, it seems like there have been a couple of different opportunities on grants. So Laura and myself have been kind of exploring various opportunities to see what, if anything, we could use to help with the planning process. So, we're going to continue to do that, but our first in-house from our financial officer in the city was to, let's get some hard costs through the RFI. So that's the first thing we're going to do, so that Councilman Shields has a more clear idea of what it's going to cost, and go from there.
So thanks, I appreciate that. And I would add that I agree that working with climate action is a good idea, but I would also encourage you to keep us very current on the cost as it advances. And I think some of our colleagues would be delighted to weigh in with Robinson and Shields and Bunch and maybe others to be sure that this is as high a priority for them as we think it should be.
Right.
Awesome.
And just so you know that internally, of course, it's obvious that the cities are being pretty hard impact in terms of revenues. And there are a lot of conversations going on. And I know the Finance Committee just received a presentation from our finance department on various scenarios related to COVID-19 and the city's revenues. So, they're already asking us to look at, what do, 5% cuts, what do 10% cuts look like for city operations. So there's a lot of simultaneous conversations going on regarding the needs and resources of what the city has right now. So it's a very interesting time we're in.
I agree, and that's why I brought it up. I think there'll be a lot of pressure on that, and it's critical, and it is, in terms of equity, it's probably the biggest thing on the docket. Some of them may not realize that, but as we advance with climate change, it's going to have enormous impact on the underserved part of the community.
Right. Tom, did you have a comment?
I was just going to say, even though you've asked us to make a presentation about the regional planning effort, however we can make the networks available to extend the quality and impact and efficacy of the public outreach that you would do, we would of course want to do that. And so there's been quite a lot of work done, and a couple people, thanks Lara, a couple people, you mentioned Keisha specifically, and there's many more. And so to the extent that there's an intersection in our audiences, we will do whatever we can to, create those kinds of efficiencies and help.
Thank you, Tom.
Laura and Andy, this is Kristen. Does the fact that our committee has not been reappointed by the new mayor get into this mix at all? Because I'm certainly willing to do all that we can to help populate those committees and do the outreach for you, whether or not I'm serving on this climate protection committee. But what impact does the status of this committee have on your plans?
So we have not received much feedback from the mayor's office regarding the committees. This is not the only committee that has not been reappointed. The Environmental Management Commission is in the same boat, and there's several other ones as well. So it seems like the mayor's office is moving through them kind of at a steady, slow pace, and I'm not sure where this committee fits in the priorities of the mayor's office in terms of reappointment. So, we can continue to try to follow up with the chief of staff and the mayor's office, trying to find out where that is. But, at this point, we're just kind of continuing with the expectation that this committee is going to be there when we need you.
Kristen, my experience tells me that we serve until we don't serve, and we'll be notified when we don't serve.
Or we drop in our boots, right? Yeah. Okay, I'm ready.
Well, isn't there also an audit, Andy, going on right now of those committees?
Yes. Yeah, there was, I don't remember the details of it, but they were looking at, that from the city auditor's office at committees and commissions. And I don't recall the exact focus of that audit, but you're right, there is something there.
But audit aside, they are very slow with this. And so literally last week is when they appointed the new members to the Planning Commission, which is normally done within weeks after the election. So I just think they're moving really slow. And I agree with Joanne, we serve until we don't. And so this will be critical before probably we know about the future of who's filling the seats.
Yes.
Emily, I just put something in, never mind. I sent this privately to someone else. Sorry, Mary Kay. So I put this in chat. This is the list of current commissioners, what's vacant, and when everybody technically is expired. It's up on the city website for everyone to see. So you could take a look at that through our webpage to answer your question.
Are we waiting on something?
Any other committee comments, questions? Nope.
No, Bob and Kristen, we really thank you for your comments.
Okay.
I want to thank the staff and congratulate you because so far so good. You've communicated very well and been very patient. And though your process timing has been interrupted, I think you're on target with it.
Okay, thank you. Okay, next up, Tom, I guess we had you for a Metro KC Climate Action Coalition update. And I see Mike's here too, so however you guys want to do it.
Maybe unmute.
Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, terrific. So I think what I'd like to do is to ask Mayor Kelly to make some introductory remarks, and then I'll walk you through some of the work that we've done on our plan. And I'll just keep it at a very high, quick level with an eye towards intersections with the upcoming city work. So Mike, if you'd like to kind of share what we're up to, get us started.
Sure. Well, first of all, I just want to say thank you for the invitation to be here today. Obviously, Kansas City is the flagship for our region, and I appreciate all the work that this committee has done on behalf of the city and really gives us a foundation that we can build upon at a regional level for cities like mine and the other 190 municipalities across the MARC footprint to work together towards shared goals. I'm the mayor of Roland Park, but also the chairman of Climate Action KC. And I'm glad that there's a lot of collaboration between the two. I see a lot of valued members of our endeavors here today. And I thank you all for your continued efforts to work together. We focused on convening leaders and are well over 100 and on our way to 150 and hopefully 200 elected leaders within the MARC footprint. Mayor Lucas is on our executive committee. We've also worked with several other city council persons in Kansas City, Missouri on either public policy issues or at our summit last September. Right now, we are in the throes of a climate action plan in cooperation with the Global Covenant of Mayors in the International Urban Cooperation Initiative of the European Union, along with three other partners, three other regions in the country to really create a model of regional resilience that allows us to look at our footprint 2 million strong in the Kansas City metropolitan region. So I'd be remiss if I didn't especially thank Tom and the entire team at MARC, David, Karen, Doug, and so many others for their efforts. We appreciate the efforts of Kristen and Bob and Kathy and really everybody. I've really been excited and heartened to receive support from so many great partners, and we're just very excited for what's to come. So I'm excited for Tom to give you all a little bit of an update on our emissions inventory and climate risk and vulnerability assessment, which really sets the stage for our climate action planning process. So Tom, thank you.
Well, thank you, Mike. I just want to thank you for everything you're doing. It's incredible. Many of us have been working at this for a long time, and you and Lindsay and all of our friends, right, have really helped push us a lot further, faster. And I think the work they were doing, the climate action plan, is sort of symptomatic of that in a lot of ways. So your leadership is extraordinary, and I thank you. So we've come a long way, right? Last year, the summit was in September. The playbook was published in December. We launched in January into the planning process with the greenhouse gas inventory and climate risk and vulnerability assessment, and those elements are completed, and we're moving towards developing the climate action plan now. Our emissions inventory was not as comprehensive as the cities. We looked at the primary sectors of stationary energy and transportation, as well as took a look at regional estimates for solid waste. And the inventory breaks out like this: 34% is around transportation, and 61% is attributable to residential buildings and commercial and institutional buildings. So together, those two pieces, transportation and building energy use, comprise north of 91% of our greenhouse gas emissions. So we take these and we've developed business as usual projections, which is to say, if nothing changes, we would go from our 2050 level at roughly 30 million metric tons per year as a region to maybe 38 or so million in 2050. And our goals, of course, are to comply with the Paris climate targets. So we're thinking about 27% reductions by 2025, 40% by 2030, and 80% by 2050. And it's a big lift. So if we were to get all the way there in 2050, we'd have to go from just over 30 million metric ton CO2 equivalents per year to just under 6. And so as we noted, the primary sources have to do with building energy use and transportation. And so we've got our work cut out for us. One of the things that's noteworthy about our emissions inventory compared to the cities is we showed continued increases in emissions from 2005, whereas the city's inventory showed dramatic decreases. We tried to explore that the best we could, and we attribute that to continued population increase. Per capita emissions, we noted, declined by 6% from the 2005 base year as a result of the decrease in energy intensity with all the wind and energy efficiency and so on that Evergy has brought online, but that's been offset based on the data that we have with population growth. So that's something perhaps that the city might be able to look at more closely as part of the inventory update that you guys undertake. So moving on to the risk and vulnerability section of our work, I'm just going to go through, you guys are probably familiar with the Downscale climate projections for Kansas City that were developed in 2016 under contract with the Kansas City Water Department. Those projections are organized in two buckets, one around precipitation and one around temperature. And, aligned with the global and national trends, we'll see more extremes in both categories with attendant economic, health, equity risks, and so forth. There's a lot that could be said on these things, but I think probably we've discussed this at some length in previous meetings. So for the regional planning work, we wanted to begin with our 2020 hazard mitigation plan that Mark is putting together now. That plan is focused on 6 natural hazards And with the risk analysis that we put together, we thought that issues of flooding, heat, and drought really were the top 3 issues. Beneath that, we noted tornadoes, severe thunderstorms, and severe winter weather, all of which are significant areas of concern. So one of the things that we're still working through, but I think has been incredibly helpful, is we've developed a social vulnerability index based on a variety of census data indicators to try and understand, okay, where are the areas on highest risk? And from that, we can begin to do overlays on areas that might be vulnerable to flooding or to extreme heat. And so to give you a little bit of flavor of this, so this heat vulnerability index, it's modified by the previous one with older structures and population over 65 living alone. This is a rough cut at this index. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to click. I cut out the subsequent slides that we've developed, but we can begin to look at where are there gaps with relation to cooling centers, or how does this relate to the city's canopy coverage or large areas of impervious that are aligned with urban heat islands and that kind of thing, so that we can begin to develop more focused solutions. We've done the same thing looking at flooding, vulnerabilities in relation to the social vulnerability index. And we're hopeful that this will be a useful planning tool to help develop very focused interventions. We spent some time looking at the region's adaptive capacity. What do we do when these things come at us? And there's all kinds of different factors that affect our ability to adapt. We grouped these into 6 very big buckets: built environment, economy, environment, public health, inequality, and government capacity. Of course, all these things are interrelated. And as we think about our ability to respond, to recover, bounce back, bounce forward from what comes our way, there's needs to work on issues from infrastructure maintenance, to affordable housing, to land use and development patterns, to the questions of structural inequality and poverty, access to healthcare, education, and so forth. There's a lot to chew on here. One of the things that's been key, we believe, is that our community has a whole lot of strengths to build on. The slide of harvesters is interesting because if you want to volunteer over there, you need to get in line because a lot of people want to volunteer over there. It's a caring and giving community, and we need to think about how do we take advantage of all this social capital to get further. There's strong coordination and leadership and professional services. There's a strong innovation ecosystem, strong social services network. There's a lot of good things to build on, and so that's where we start. So this slide, now that I've got up findings and opportunities, on the left, it speaks to mitigation, and on the right, it speaks to adaptation. So mitigation opportunities related to reducing emissions on building, energy use, and transportation. These sorts of opportunities are known to all of us, right? We're thinking about renewable energy and energy efficiency, mobility options, electrification of the fleet, low carbon fuels. The question of organic waste management, food systems, food security is one that is top of mind for many people right now. And carbon sequestration on natural lands. How can we put more carbon in the soil with not nature-based solutions? On the adaptation side, thinking about flooding and heat, again, there's a lot of opportunities, and these things come from interactions with our national consultants, with the members of the Global Covenant of Mayors, with our area stakeholders. These are just sort of preliminary observations, but they're very clear. We can work on heat island abatement, thinking about urban forestry, cool roofs, green roofs, thinking about heat wave relief and cooling programs, something that I'm frankly very concerned about this summer. If cooling centers are closed and people are out of work and can't pay their energy bills, what are we going to do? I think that I'm curious about how we consider that problem and what kinds of creative solutions we might frame. The whole question of green infrastructure, whether it's stormwater or orchards or urban agriculture or stream corridor restoration, I think that's the low-hanging fruit of climate adaptation because there's so many benefits. About climate resilient design standards as we update our infrastructure and we redevelop or develop new areas, how do we do that in ways that are frankly more resilient? From the MARC perspective, we're finishing our transportation plan, and the centers and corridors approach is central to that. It's absolutely a resilient strategy when you begin to knit together the different kinds of solutions. So I think the challenge and the opportunity in front of us is to not just understand what these discrete opportunities are, but how do we knit them together, and how do we do that at a systems level to identify kind of the most elegant solutions that really focus on equity and that serve vulnerable populations and locations. So moving on to the planning process, we're trying to do a lot with this plan, focused on equity. We're looking at economic opportunity, we're looking at developing new funding models, trying to think about how we can work from an individual level to a neighborhood, a watershed, a community, a region, and finding pathways to empower folks at every level. There's a lot of opportunity in a local government context to align existing investment programs to take resilience into account. Kansas City has been a leader on that. Years ago, I believe Councilwoman Markuson had said sustainability is a metric that needs to be considered for every single council decision. So there's opportunities to think about the CIP and how that builds resilience into ongoing investment. So there's a lot we're trying to do here. Where we are now, we are in the community engagement portion of our work. We've got a virtual platform called MindMixer. I'll give you the link in a second. And we're asking people to weigh in on a variety of topics to help frame the conversation that will go to an advisory committee and expert stakeholder groups. When that part is done, we'll move into plan development and then push it all back out to the community again and hope to wrap this up by December. So our platform for engagement is climateactionkc.mindmixer.com. If you haven't been on there, I invite you to join us. We've organized our work into conversations by 1-week conversations on a variety of sectors. The first one was transportation. This week is food and land. Next week is built environment week. And so in each week, we recognize there's a variety of cross-cutting issues. So we're trying to focus conversation also on equity dimensions, economic development and innovation, public health, environmental health, because those are threads that certainly weave through all of the different weeks. We're trying to do a lot, and we need everybody's best ideas so we can think about how we can come up with the most effective plan moving forward. It'll be really exciting to think about how the work that we're doing regionally can support the work that the city has undertaken and will undertake soon, so that we can all be on the same page and firing on all cylinders. So that is where I will stop, and I would be thrilled to answer any questions if there are any.
Well, my comment is that you've already done it certainly is a mind mixer. I don't know where you came up with that one, but good show. But that just, their illustrations there are just wonderful and clearly to be understood, and certainly deals with the Robinson inclusion of equity. I appreciate that and the presentation.
You're welcome. And I neglected to call out Joan Levins, who is one of our co-chairs for our planning committee to help guide all of this work. Joan is a longtime friend and incredibly effective leader. So Joan, thank you for your help.
That's great. Congratulations. Mike Kelly mentioned the mayor of Roland Park. Is that right? He's a co-chair of this committee.
Yes, Roland Park.
Mike is the founder of Climate Action KC together.
I do all my grocery shopping there. Good show.
Wonderful produce. We appreciate having you.
Thank you. Okay. Any
Tom,
other questions?
I just want to say that I really appreciate your snapping into focus for us the issue that's right in front of us this summer, which is how we're going to handle heat in challenged groups of people in Kansas City. I mean, that kind of immediate problem and real life problem is the kind of thing that we need to really be working on, because it's easy for us. There's so many kind of abstractions that we have to think about with climate change. So I really appreciate that. And I think we need to think seriously about that immediate issue and what we might be able to do to help with it.
Good observation. A couple of those slides, think about the flooding that could have been taken yesterday here in Kansas City, that's for sure.
So I agree with Kristen, and I would encourage all of us to encourage the groups that we know of through our churches or any other means to get people to log into MindMixer and to offer their suggestions, because MindMixer is a very good tool for a community dialogue, but only if the conversation is diverse. And so we'll have to curate it some. We have to really invite people into the conversation and be sure that they get a sense that they can make a suggestion and see that the ideas are evolving.
Yeah, that's great. I think we got to get it out to the neighborhood associations too. My neighborhood meetings in the morning, so I'll add this to our agenda here for Beacon Hill residents. But I think it's going to be critical, especially when you talk about the summer and the heat. And there's still the high probability of the flooding that might come. I mean, I don't think we're done with this whole rain business, so.
Exactly.
Any other questions, comments to Tom or Mike?
Well, I'd just like to compliment again Mike and all those that have stepped up and Lindsay and everyone that has stepped up to provide this leadership and to launch this dialogue and this study at a really critical time. And I think it's on all of us to be sure that the conversation continues to increase in size and diversity and its breadth and depth. So I think we all need to do all we can to accelerate this at this point.
Thank you, Bob, and thank you to everybody who continues to help. Thank you to Joan for her work on getting this MindMixer out there. And thanks for letting me be a part of today's meeting. I'm really excited to hear that Kansas City continues to move in the right direction. So thank you very much.
I'd like to make sure that you keep me apprised of your meetings and your sessions, and like to have some input to including some chapters of Federal Retired Employees, Church Women United, and the Moore Square, other civil rights groups that we have in the area that need to have this information.
Absolutely, we'd love to have you.
Is it okay to put the Climate Action MindMixer out there on Nextdoor? I can reach about 36,000 residents with Nextdoor.
Yes, please do.
Okay.
Fantastic, yes. Thank you. Any other comments? Andy?
So next up on the agenda is the Urban Forest Master Plan. And last committee meeting in February, we had Kristen kind of take the committee through an update on what the plan was about. This month was not only a good month for the climate resilience plan resolution, but it was also a good month for the Urban Forest Master Plan resolution that was on the docket. So I will turn that over to Kristen to kind of take it from there.
Good shot.
Thank you, Andy. I think I'll just repeat a few of the highlights of the Urban Forest Master Plan for the city of KCMO for those who are with us today on this call who might not be familiar. Basically, the plan advocated that we take better care of our existing forest canopy in Kansas City, Missouri, in part as a strategy for climate change resilience. In order to do a better job with our forest, which is imperiled now by age and disease and other factors, we really need, and you won't be surprised to hear this, more money than we're currently giving to our forests. The plan asks that we spend $5 million a year more over the $3 million a year that we're currently spending on Kansas City, Missouri's urban forest. The $5 million has a heavy dose of maintenance-related activities. As it is now, we don't really have the funding to do a lot of maintenance of our existing tree canopy, and that's very important because mature trees present way more ecosystem benefits than newly planted ones. The plan also advocates for things like having an internal champion whose job it is to really orchestrate activities relating to our urban forest across all of the different city departments that end up touching our trees. The plan also advocates finally for a review of the existing KCMO city ordinances related to trees, of which there are a number. And Jerry Schechter and Laura Ish and some of the other folks on this call have been very involved, as has Bridging the Gap, in looking at these ordinance reviews. As it is today, you can take it upon yourself to cut down public trees in the city of KCMO with basic impunity. There really isn't anything that would protect those trees from that kind of, let's say, vandalism or development. And so we want to change that, and the ordinances are being reviewed with that in mind. Our forester at Bridging the Gap, Sarah Crowder, told me today that the default, we've looked at the ordinances for a lot of different cities across the United States, and it sounds like the one that's going to be used as the kind of sort of skeletal ordinance is the city of Portland, Oregon's. And we, I think, are pretty far along in the process of being able to finalize our recommendations to council with regard to tree ordinances. Finally, the most significant thing that has happened in the last couple of weeks is in the very same subcommittee that looked at the resolution relating to climate change, that same subcommittee of the City Council passed a resolution which adopts the Urban Forest Master Plan for the city, and also requires that the city manager develop funding mechanisms for the Urban Forest Master Plan. So those are the next steps. I think finalizing the sets of ordinances that we're now looking at closely, and also finding the funding for our Urban Forest Master Plan. That's it, Andy.
Thank you, Kristen. Any questions for Kristen?
Thank you. Very aggressive again.
Kristen, Bob, I have only one, and that is, has there been any work done to look at the, what you would say, I might call thinning or maintenance of existing heavily forested areas, with the goal being to make the whole system healthier and therefore more capable of absorbing more carbon as a part of the plan? Or is it only just planting new trees?
Oh, well, I don't know about thinning per se. I haven't heard that discussed. But absolutely, the maintenance of our mature trees would really be where the majority of the money is going, because we have so few dollars devoted to maintenance today. And we also have an issue with having a trained workforce that can do the scale of arborist work that we need. Right. I believe even for entry-level tree work right now, the Parks Department has 3 jobs open. There aren't enough people that are trained with these skills. So there's a workforce development part of it. There's absolutely a big focus on maintenance of our mature trees as those contributing the greatest ecosystem values. But I don't know about the thinning thing per se, Bob. I have not heard that.
Okay, thanks.
Bob, this is Joanne Collins. You need to give me simply a thinning synopsis. What does that mean?
Well, I'm not probably the right person to do that, but I've been hearing this recently from others, and it is more than just thinning. It's evaluating the what would you say, the vitality, the resilience, and the climate phases, as they put it, of trees in a system.
Okay.
and then informing decisions about the maintenance of that landscape. And often just because we don't do that, we end up allowing the whole system to collapse earlier, and long before it collapses, it loses its capacity to sequester carbon and build soil. And so I just wondered if anyone is looking at that as part of the strategy.
I would absolutely say that I still am not sure about the word thinning, but certainly evaluating the health of a given tree, making sure that it's properly pruned at different stages of its life cycle so that it can achieve its maximum growth. All of these are part of that. I think also when we plant trees in environments where we have a lot of pavement, we know that a lot of these trees never really reach their full potential. So yes, yes, and yes to all of that.
Thanks.
Who teaches and trains arborists?
We have a program at Bridging the Gap that that trains citizen arborists with about 19 hours, I believe, is the course to learn how to do simple pruning and things like that. But what we're really talking about when we get into a mature tree canopy, you really need people that are working with equipment and cherry pickers and all kinds of stuff. So it's the program that we have at Bridging the Gap is really not adequate for that kind of professional arborist training.
Okay.
Madam Chair, may I make a comment?
Yes, please.
Thank you. So Bob, in response to your question about thinning, it's probably worth differentiating two forest types. So in many ways, the tree master plan is focused on street trees, streets in the built environment. And so that would be a different type of management question than a forest management question that might arise from larger tracts of forest, like we might have, for example, in some of the larger areas of land in public ownership, a swope park, for example, where clearly there would be management interventions that could be undertaken to improve the health of the forest. And so they're qualitatively two different kinds of things.
Yeah, good point. Thanks.
Andy?
Okay, next up is any steering committee discussion or conversation.
Well, we're having that, Andy. That's what we're having right now.
I guess we're just opening it up the floor, I guess, to the committee.
Any other comments from the committee members? Let's see the public members that are on our call today and in our Zoom today. Is there anyone who would like to introduce themselves and tell us who you're with and give us an observation or a comment or have a question? I'm not hearing any. Everybody knows to how unmute themselves to do that. Okay. Does the committee members have any other comments?
Well, not on that, but I wonder, but what I'm thinking about is the energy code, which is in the process somewhere, the update, and where are we on that and what do we expect our next steps to be?
So the energy code, I had a conversation with Greg about that earlier this week. He said that they are literally days away from kind of sending out an updated revision to the code, particularly the energy code. He assures me that they have removed several of the amendments that were in the original draft that he provided for the public to comment about. So he is aware that the council has been approached by various stakeholders really promoting the 21 energy code. So I think his concern about that, and the concern is that that the 21 code, because it's not out yet, it's not final, that he doesn't want to wait until that happens. Now, there are some council members that seem willing to consider that as an opportunity, but he's at this point getting ready to publish. He assured me that he was going to send out the revised code to all those that participated in those public meetings back a couple of months ago. So like I said, it was probably, he said within the week to about a week and a half, that would be put out there for folks to take a look at. So he seems to think that it would be more appealing to the stakeholder groups. I'm not so sure myself. I think it maybe is more appealing to the builder side, maybe more so. He didn't want to elaborate specifically on what amendments were still left in the code. So we'll see here in the next week or two what that looks like. Again, we talked about the climate protection planning process that we're going to begin to take, and the ramifications of what that might look in terms of revisiting the energy code, the 21 energy code, maybe next year. The other thing is I tried to, we originally talked earlier this week about if he would be open to the idea of using the 21 as a stretch code, if he would be open to that idea. And he really was very reluctant to consider that at this stage of the game for various reasons. So at this point, he's on track with re-releasing the 18, removing some of the amendments, and then kind of seeing how it plays out with council.
So
Did you send him the article? Sorry, Bob.
Oh, go ahead.
Oh, and I was going to say, did you send him the article about Kansas City versus St. Louis to see what results that got?
Yes. Bob, did you have another comment?
Well, I was just going to say that I believe that, well, first I would ask you to keep us all informed about that, and then being informed, I think it's important that we all continue to lobby as effectively as we can to retain the 21 base standard, because the ordinance just passed and we're all celebrating. You really can't achieve that goal if you don't get the energy code in alignment with the other ordinance.
Right.
This is Kristen, I'd just like to chime in that this energy code is a significant equity issue. I mean, and I think sometimes we don't think of it in that way, but it will absolutely be an equity issue in the long run, in that the homes that we're building are going to have intolerable utility bills associated with them unless we tighten those up. So when we talk about our commitment to equity, this has got to be one of the things that we fall on our sword for.
I agree.
Yeah, we'll keep you posted. As soon as we see what the revision looks like, we can certainly send it to the committee for review, just to kind of keep up on what's going on here.
Speaking of the committee and its review, what's our timing? I just want to take another moment to congratulate Andy, you and the staff, and Mark, and all of our stakeholders who have been diligent about the ordinances that we have had over the last few months, and the comments that have been made to Mayor and City Council as well as staff that helped us along. And you're to be congratulated. I recognize that the budgeting time in the last 4 months of the year, or the fiscal year, or the calendar year, are very tough, but this is the time that you spend out, and you've had to jam that up, and now you've gotten interrupted with a major overlay of with the virus situation. So it's you're to be congratulated for your day-to-day, and recognize that most of you are doing it from home all the time, and that's an added burden. Jerry Schechter, Joanne Collins wants to know if you have any comments.
Yes, ma'am, I do. I think it's important to keep in mind that when we're talking about 2018 or 21 or 2021 new building codes that we've got as an equity issue, especially, we've got major equity issue in terms of the 220,000 or whatever the right number is of existing buildings which don't meet any kind of current code that are going to be experiencing increasing problems with heat and the like in terms of their utility bills. The new homes are going to be built under a new code and are going to be tremendously in advance of those existing homes. And I think that's the bigger issue. And especially when it comes to an equity lens, I think we need to really look at what we're doing there and keep that in mind.
Thank you. Okay. Well, Andy, what about our next meeting?
So if we stay on target, we will shoot for another 3 months.
Okay.
Hey, Andy.
Madam Chair.
Billy has been trying to say something as a member of the public. He missed out on
Oh,
it.
good. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Introduce yourself.
Sorry. Sorry, Dee.
I do. Thank you, Laura. And I do apologize, Madam Chair, committee members. Can you all hear me okay?
Yes.
Fantastic. I've blocked my screen. The internet kind of seems to be really slowing things down. So just on my phone. And I just, first wanted to thank you all for providing this venue to enable the public to participate and be here, even despite these extraordinary times. As you all stated, the council passed an extraordinary resolution, a very forward-looking first step in taking bold action to address the climate crisis. And one thing was mentioned that the great amount of comments that were poured in that went into that, despite, as you all have had to deal with in OAQ especially, a very let's call it dynamic scheduling process for trying to get this resolution heard. It was on the docket, taken off. And I would encourage you all, if you have the time, to review some of the comments that were posted on Resolution 20005. With over 100, I think all were in support of the resolution, and many called for even bolder action, even getting into like expressing praise for some of the next steps that you all are discussing here, like talking about energy efficiency, renewable energy, building resilience. And I hope you will find comfort in that. You all were talking about the kind of slightly precarious situation, asking questions about the future of this committee since the mayor's office is being slow in making appointments. I just hope you will find confidence in some of the very passionate comments that were put forth for this resolution, expressing support for the very things that you all are talking about, because there are going to have to be some very difficult conversations. And I think there is a lot of support for what you're talking about now. And I really want to express support for what's being said here about the building codes process, as that's something that's coming up really soon and is a very important part of any plan towards achieving climate protection and resilience. And so we encourage you to continue to speak passionately, speak out, whether it's here in this forum or in your day-to-day jobs as you're able to. And we thank you for your work and look forward to the next steps in this very important process. Thank you for the time.
Thank you for being here, and thank you for your comments. We certainly appreciate it. We just need thousands more just like you. Any other comments? I want to say to Dee, I know you live in Beacon Hill, and I know it's one of the significant neighborhood associations or neighborhoods in Kansas City or greater Kansas City. But that is just not your view from your house that I'm looking at behind you.
It is from my kitchen window.
Oh, thank you. I wanted you to make that
and my backyard.
Thank you. That is wonderful.
I get to see that at night, all lit up from my bedroom window.
Isn't that wonderful? From my bedroom window at 9th and Main, I get to see the sunset over the west side of the Kansas City. I miss that view.
Well, I've been here 40 years.
It's wonderful. Just wonderful. Thank you, and congratulations and good health to you. Any other comments?
Just before we wrap up, I just want to, for the committee, if there are any thoughts in regards to what you would like to see in the RFP or, things while we're developing that particular, those administrative tools that we need to get the process moving forward, certainly reach out to Laura or myself, send us a note or some thoughts in regards to what you'd like us to make sure we incorporate into those documents. So, and going back to our next scheduled time, we're going to shoot for August for our next meeting in terms of keeping the committee up to date on what's going on.
That's fine. We will schedule that. Hopefully we'll be able to get together, honoring our social distancing, but we can do the Zoom again, and if not possible. Hopefully that you get 100 to 125,000 for funding your needs. Just call Bob Burkerbile, Joanne Collins, and we'll make a call or two or send out a hot email to who will be difficult to convince. Okay.
Bob, $200,000 would make this an amazing
Oh,
plan.
no, she didn't. Laura certainly took advantage.
Take it up here.
Good for you, Laura. Yeah.
If there isn't anything else, I want to tell everybody to be safe. Bob, you look like you want to say something.
Yeah, Madam Chair, I would just like to add to the thanks you gave to Billy Davies and all the others that may be on the call and many that aren't on the call for their testimony, for their thoughtfulness, for lobbying, because I think that's the reason that passed as it did, and we're going to need it on the energy code and other things yet to be defined. And it wouldn't happen. I don't think that would have happened without your support. We all really appreciate it.
We value the air we breathe and the water we drink and our total environment. And we just have to get the average citizen to think and be vocal about it. That's a mission that we all have individually, and we need to increase that participation. If there's no other business to come before the Kansas City Climate Protection Steering Committee, I want to thank all the participants and presenters and the committee members and the public that's involved. And Andy, you've done a good job again. We are adjourned.
Okay.
Have a blessed day. You're welcome.
Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Andy,
Yeah.
this is Joan Levins.
Yes. Hi, John.
Hi, I would just like to be sure that we do follow up with the councilwomen and the committee members who requested to have information about Climate Action KC and the mine mixer. I would be happy to send them an email. May I send it to you, and would you forward it to them?
Absolutely.
That's great. Thank you. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Thanks, Joan. Nice to see you.
Thanks, Joan.
Bye-bye.
Joan, I missed you. I miss water quality stuff and getting to see you at the committee meetings.
I miss you as well. This is a wonderful committee. Great work.
Andy, Courtney, who I think is still on the line, had asked about getting a recording of the meeting. I don't know how that works, so.
Give it to Andy, and Andy will will send out a copy of it, I'm sure.
Yeah, just go ahead and just send me an email and we'll go from there.
Okay, I have her sending me an email, so I'll get it out. Okay, thanks.
Thank you, Laura.
Thank you.
Good evening.